Magic Dick, thank you for being here with me.
Thank you, Liam.
We're at
My delight.
We're at the Blues Kitchen in London, just seen a great show with you, Billy Branch, James Harmon,
Yeah, man.
and Giles Robson as well. I just wanted to ask you a few questions about your playing style and your approach to the harmonica.
Sure.
It was interesting to hear tonight you played some classic Sonny Boy songs and kind of your interpretation of some of the solos and those styles.
Yeah.
Is interpreting the old masters, is that an important thing for you?
Yes, it is. And I want to clarify what I'm trying to do there because I study those recordings intensely. The reason for that is because the technique that is embodied to play those various elements, those are the best harp players I've ever heard. And so I'm deeply interested in the technique, how they do it, and since they're gone, the only way to really figure it out is trial and error and experiment, and eliminate as many variables as possible and focus on just like one element until you've figured out the physics of the acoustics, the mechanics of it. And the harp is extremely sensitive to air pressure. I don't mean atmospheric air pressure. I mean the pressure that you're blowing or drawing on. And in order to produce a really nice, beautiful tone, you have to play considerably softer than you might imagine at first. Most harp players, myself included, have a tendency to blow past the point of good tone. And then what happens when you do that is that the tone starts taking on a hissy quality because you can hear the rush of the air, and it forces the reed to vibrate back and forth too far. When the excursion of the reed goes so far, then you end up with a harsh tone because it's generating inharmonic overtones. Whereas what makes a beautiful tone is a nice fundamental pitch, and then this series of overtones, like the octave, and then the fifth above that, and then the third, and there's this whole series of partial tones that will come out and sound gorgeous when you play with the correct technique and pressure. And these guys could do that. That's the reason I try to emulate what they're doing. It's not like that to me is the end all be all.
Yeah.
It's the doorway to learning how to sound that good.
Yeah.
And I'm still on this journey because I've had many epiphanies over the past 3 or 4 years concerning all of this. And you're asking me about this at this time is kind of perfect because this stuff is fresh to me, fresh to my mind from a certain analysis point of view. And the conclusion that I have drawn is that I, like most harp players, going back to the beginning days, we all want to get onto an amp soon, and you get really engrossed in picking a microphone that you think you want. You hear somebody play on this thing, you see the mic they're using, you figure, you got to get that mic, and then you got to get that amp. Well, I'm here to say that that's wrong. Actually, what it is, and this was the epiphany that I had, is that the sound that you hear Little Walter play, like listen to any of his recordings with the amplified harp, that sound, that actual tone quality is there in his hands acoustically. And if you don't have that there, no microphone and no amplifier is going to polish turd. You know what I'm saying?
Put shit in, get shit out.
Yeah, exactly. So as you work on these things, I really highly recommend put the mic down, put the amp away, and focus on, take some Little Walter licks. Take a phrase that you really like and try to play it, and you'll get to a point where you suddenly realize, wow, that tone and that sound doesn't really have very much to do with the amp. And I know that Little Walter didn't care very much about amps and mics. He was not obsessed about that. He just used a mic and an amp so that he could make it louder. It wasn't like, oh, if he lost that amp, it was the end of his world. You know. You know, another thing that struck me off in this direction of recognizing this was there's a cool book out called Blues with a Feeling. It's a biography and a discography of all of Little Walter's story.
Okay.
And there's kind of a report in one chapter there of some gents who met Little Walter, these guys were harp freaks or blues fans, and they met him when he came over here, and they would get to hear him playing just you know, in the dressing room or something like that. And the comment that they made, which impressed me at the time, but I didn't think of it in the way that I do now, was they said, well, he sounded like Little Walter. And I figured what they meant was he sounded like Little Walter because he's playing his Little Walter licks, his Little Walter style. But I think what they meant goes beyond that. I think what they're saying was they were familiar with the way Little Walter sounded through his amp on these recordings.
Yeah.
And they were saying he sounded like that with no amp.
Yeah.
You see, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That to me is the essence of, it's the thing that separates the best sounding players from ones that don't sound quite as good.
Yeah.
Because the ones who don't sound quite as good haven't mastered this technique of staying in the ballpark of where you need to be to get that beautiful sound.
Yeah.
And it's all right here. And every little finger position, all of this stuff. Like, too many players just like grab the whole thing and, you know, tighten around it and they sound like that. And they think, oh man, it's a big fat sound. Well, yeah, it's a big fat sound, but that's all it is. You know, we need variety. We need modulation in the tone. So you have to learn to work this space around the instrument and the adjustments in the mouth, the throat, the position of the tongue. It's all very complicated. But although it's complicated, you don't have to necessarily get into those complications except to try these things, experimenting, eliminate as many variables as possible so that you can get a handle on what it means to change one factor.
Yeah.
You know, then the things unfold, the revelations come. It's like, oh man, once you realize that, you don't care so much about the amp and the mic because you recognize, no, it's there. And so these guys from here that talked about that, he sounded like Little Walter. I see it differently now. Like, you know, I thought they just meant, like I said, I just thought they meant, well, yeah, he was playing Little Walter. He was playing his licks. No, I think they meant it goes, when you say he sounded like, what they mean is he sounded like the way I know he sounds.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, before I ever met him. So that was a revelation.
Yeah.
You know. So all during this period, long period of time, I've been playing almost 50 years. And this long period of time where I've done so many different things and different styles, different approaches, almost all of it with an amp. But I wasn't enlightened about that at that time. You know, not that I got a bad result, but I see now how much better the result could be.
Sure.
You know, by adopting these things that I'm talking about.
So are you still searching for the Magic Dick sound then?
Yeah, because the Magic Dick sound, in my mind, is taking the groundwork that they laid and then stylistically doing additional things with it. You know, like I went in that direction, for example, on in 1973 or 74 when we had the album Monkey Island, and we did a Louis Armstrong tune called "I'm Not Rough," which was from a Louis Armstrong recording in 1927. And I was really struck by what's so cool about the arrangement of that song is that it starts out as a country blues kind of thing, and then it becomes more jazz-like and hip and citified, you know. And I really started to pay a lot of attention to that idea and that arrangement. And I brought the idea of doing it to the band. I said, hey guys, check this out. I think that we could really do something with this song because I could hear it going from the simplicity of what like Louis was doing. I basically transcribed his cornet solo.
Okay.
for a specially tuned harp, a magic harp model,
Okay.
which is a long story, but we probably won't get into that. But basically, that tuning allowed me to play 99% of what Louis was doing with it. And as this piece progresses, it becomes more and more citified until the whole band is kind of like rocking intensely with this thing,
Yeah.
you know. But starting from the simple pop boo dee doo, pop boo dee doo,
Yeah.
pop boo dee boo dee ba. I'm not singing it right. My voice is shot right now, but the point is that I knew that this could be played on the harp, and so I felt like, okay, I want to do it. That means I really got to get on top of it, you know. And it worked out. It worked out really cool.
Yeah.
But were I to try to do the same thing now, anything that I try to do now, I'm trying to embody these new principles that have come to light for me.
Yeah.
And I'm far from the only one who is hip to this. You know, there's a guy named Barbecue Bob who used to play with Jimmy Rogers. And Bob is always talking about, like on Facebook or wherever, he's always talking about playing lightly. That's where the secret of the tone is.
Yeah.
You know? It's very important if you want to sound good. Otherwise, it's just like a blaring kind of sound. You know? Kind of a harsh tone.
Yeah.
You know? And harshness, nobody actually really likes harshness. You know, the ear doesn't dig it.
It's even the word blow is misleading.
Yeah, it is.
You know, because it's a breath.
It conveys a certain degree of force.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and yes, it does. But what it is really is more. It's the attack.
Yeah.
In other words, you can give a strong attack, or you can give a proper attack, but not blow too hard.
Yeah.
And when you do that, that's when the tone, it rings like a bell.
Yeah.
It just leaps out like, man.
Yeah.
That's what excites me.
It's also nice when you get someone who understands the different dynamic levels they can use the instrument at.
Yeah.
So if they might start here and then they might bring it up and bring it down again, and they've got that ability rather than always up here.
Yeah, yes. We need contrast, and I lost my train of thought, but that's very true. And it's the hardest thing to do when you've been playing so many decades like me, where I've played very intensely for a long period of time, and still do.
Yeah.
But now I'm trying to get a better sound out of it. Not so much focusing on the amp, you know. It's here. I can't emphasize it enough, you know.
Yeah.
And even the way the harp is held, you know, most players will hold it, you know, in here, like that.
Yeah.
And but the other thing is, what do you do with all these? This stuff back here. There's so much that can go on with where you put these other fingers. You know, you hold the harp with these two, but what these three do is all kinds of magic inside here, and you bring this over it. You can't even see what some guys are doing with these fingers in there.
Yeah.
And it's like you get a dual cavity going in here, rather than just this thing like this. You know, this dual cavity thing, and the way you can manipulate the resonance.
Yeah.
That's really, it's not really a secret, but it's the secret to sounding really awesome.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It was great tonight. I mean, it was wonderful to hear Whammer Jammer and, you know, all that stuff. But it was also great to hear some kind of groove playing. It seemed to have a lot of groove in your playing and locking into the rhythms.
Yeah, I'm a very rhythmic player. I have a tendency sometimes in the excitement of the moment to start pushing the tempo.
Yeah.
Which is not a good thing to do. You want to be able to, you know, play steady, but many people do speed up in the intensity of playing live.
I think I have that same thing. Yeah.
But it's a wonderful instrument, and I think the key to developing further on it is to always maintain a love. always maintain an attraction to the instrument, because you can work on stuff in such a way that you don't want it to be work. It's always got to be something exciting, and you should expect a revelation every day.
Yeah.
It's been happening for me more and more.
Yeah.
Like, but sometimes you have to work for maybe several hours on something. You keep focusing on it, and then, or maybe the next day you do it, and it's like, ooh, I never got that sound before, and it's not the amp or the mic.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Where's that been hiding? Yeah.
James, you all right?
Yeah, I just, with all that philosophical and technical, I wanted to ask you, if that's all right, what possessed me to play Alfie all of a sudden? Did you hear that?
No.
In the middle of Color Murder working, Billy was
Yeah.
and I said, I got to do something different, and I played Alfie. And I thought, what did he do?
Yeah. Well, you know, the best thing is when the ear just suggests to you something to do, and you do it, and it's like, where'd that come from, man?
Yeah.
It's cool, you know.
Yeah.
Never edited myself.
Yeah, and thinking and playing is thinking while you're playing is not a very good thing to do. You need to really be in the moment, and to be in the moment means don't think.
Yeah.
Thinking makes it like there's like an impediment there, because you're being calculating about it. You know, you need to have practice to the point that you are no longer calculating anything. You know, it takes a tremendous amount of practice, at least for me. But I don't care, because I enjoy the practice. You know, that's my fun.
Yeah.
You know,
That's the best way to be.
but you know, you can go for long periods of time. Everybody tends to be like they reach a plateau. You know, and you're on a plateau for a long time. It's like you're looking for a breakthrough, you know. And that's why, for me, I focus on these elements, because I've learned that once you figure that out, that's the key to progressing. Now, it's not the only way to do it. This is what I do, you know. I recommend it to people, but
it works for you.
Hey, you know, anybody could take a different approach. You could just suddenly decide, well, I'm going to do something totally weird, you know, or something I never thought of before. I'm going to try different techniques. It's all good. But to me, I've never heard anybody better than Little Walter and both Sonny Boys. They are the pinnacle to me. And there's such a gold mine of the technique that they bring to make those riffs work is really the thing.
Yeah.
You know, I figure, well, as an end goal to sound like, to emulate somebody to the nth degree where you can't tell the difference between that one and you, that's not a very good ending. That's not a very good end thing to be after. You know what I mean? I use it as a means to find out more of myself. You know, to find out how to bring out more musically. You know. So it's simple on one hand, and yet it takes concentrated experimentation. But it's fun. That's if it's not fun, don't do it.
Yeah, stop.
You know? Yeah.
So let me ask you very, very briefly then, because I think a lot of people, if they're familiar with you, will be familiar with Whammer Jammer.
Yeah.
I'm interested in composition and, you know, how people put songs together. Did that all come as one piece, or was that meticulous over a long period?
It was crafted by my mind and working with the band too. You know, it was like, I knew that I wanted to start an instrumental like Sonny Boy's, but I borrowed Bye Bye Bird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which I first heard with Sonny Boy playing with the Yardbirds on that low C, you know, the low, bigger one. Yeah. And I was thrilled by the rhythm that his rhythm was just awesome.
Yeah.
And so that really influenced me. And I wanted to get certain aspects of Bye Bye Bird down, so I started with that. And then it just occurred to me that, okay, you could I could take all of these various elements from Little Walter and Sonny Boy and even Sonny Terry and combine them where each chorus that goes by builds upon something so that the net result is Whammer Jammer. It's like this train ride. You know, that has this momentum. And the fact that it's arranged the way it is one of the things that keeps it moving. You know, each thing unfolds, you know, into like another strata. You know, and boy, I tell you, it's really a challenge to play it on demand.
Yeah, I bet.
Because you really have to be sharp to do it justice. And if you're not well rehearsed on it, if you're not well practiced on it, it can start to fall apart, you know, and then it won't sound so good. You know what I mean? It requires a precision of detail and attack and swing, you know, to make it work. Like the first three choruses of it are unaccompanied. You know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing for me is I want to generate that groove where people are like grooving before anybody else even comes in. You know. And that's kind of what I learned from Sonny Boy. I thought that Rice Miller was one of the best at doing that. You know, I mean, maybe even better than Little Walter in terms of just playing totally by himself with no other additions. You know, of course that's what it means, but.